Hey folks, how's it going? This is Cams here. Welcome to another episode of Acoustic Guitar I.O. I've got some great content for you coming up over the next month or so. I was down at the RMMGA Guitar Gathering in the Cotswolds a couple of weekends ago, just last weekend in June, and I had the great pleasure of interviewing Mike Dawes while I was there. If any of you haven't heard of Mike Dawes, you should look him up. His music is fantastic. And we had a good chat on the Saturday morning after a rather late Friday night, so it was an interesting discussion. Before we get to that though, I'd just like to do a little bit of housekeeping. My channel is growing, which fills me with so much joy you wouldn't even believe it. I have started a Patreon page. Now that's something that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I feel confident that my content has value, and I would love to be able to keep doing this. Now my wife, God bless her, she's an amazing woman. She's supporting what I'm doing here, but she hasn't seen any benefit to what I'm doing here. All she's seen is invoices for camera gear and for travel. So if you could help me out in any way, I would really, really appreciate it. Even $1 a month. It's not a lot to ask. I myself do subscribe to some content creators on Patreon simply because I love their content, and I know it's a good model. I know that it can work, and although it makes me feel a little bit squirmy to ask, I'm going to do it anyway. So if you enjoy this content, then please consider visiting my Patreon page. It's patreon.com/acousticguitarIO. Otherwise, you can go onto the iTunes store. You can give this podcast a rating. I know it goes out on YouTube, but it's also going out on the podcast networks. So you'll catch it in your podcast client, whichever one you prefer to use. Apple is still king of the heap when it comes to curation, and their algorithms are really benefited by your giving my show a rating and also some feedback. If you feel so inclined, I would really appreciate that. It helps my channel to grow and to get this content in front of other people's eyeballs or ears. And if you would like to share this, that would mean a lot as well, because that's how social media works, right? Stuff gets shared, and if you find it valuable, please consider sharing this with your friends and just letting people know that this is out there. So with that said, we're going to jump straight into the interview with Mike Dawes. I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you again at the end. Hello,
Excellent.
Mike Dawes. Welcome to my podcast, Acoustic Guitar I.O.
Great to be here on your podcast.
Great. Well, I was actually jumping for joy when I heard you were coming.
Oh,
I've been following you a couple of years, I think. When did Acoustic Uprising come out?
Acoustic Uprising. Oh, the movie from Australia. Yeah, it would have been a few years ago, I think. Yeah, because I shot some stuff for that, and it was about 3 years ago or something. So yeah,
that's
great movie. Those guys did a really great job. Shout out to Drew and the team for doing that.
They really did. I think they've hit the zeitgeist with that, with the modern fingerstyle sort of uprising. It's a great name for it.
Yeah, it's an expanding troupe of weirdos, and I say that as a weirdo myself. No offense to anyone that takes offense with the term weirdos, but it's great. It's great to have some sort of archive of all these people from all walks of life all over the world sharing their joy of the ever expanding world of acoustic guitar.
How far back does your listening go in terms of the sort of original fingerstyle genre with like some Bert Jansch and John Renborn and Davy Graham? Did you listen to those guys?
Well, growing up, my parents, I would say my dad is a musical guy. My mum is a music appreciator, an appreciator of music, and my dad comes from the sort of soul funk world, but my mum is a folkie at heart, right? So things like Pentangle, Davy Graham, all of that stuff was present in the family as the sort of soundtrack to some of my youth, really. But in terms of myself getting into the guitar, it was Pierre Bensusan first and foremost, because my godfather, so my parents' best friends, my godparents, so my godfather, Alan, he actually has done a lot of work for Pierre over the years as a graphic designer. In fact, Pierre's song Silent Passenger is actually written as a dedication to him, to my godfather. And that album, Intuite, the song Silent Passenger is on, also contains a song called So Long Michael, which when I heard it, I was blown away by the piece of music. I thought it was fascinating. I was drawn to the title because my name is Michael, so I was probably the one I listened to first. But I read about Michael Hedges because that's what that was a dedication to. I did some reading, and that seemed to be a dedication to Michael Hedges as a sort of, I guess, a thank you for the dedication through Michael's song Ben Susan, which predated that, which was track 2 on Aerial Boundaries. So I discovered that world since discovering Pierre. And then through playing in the scene, I had the opportunity to open for John Renbourn and a lot of more folky picking artists in that scene around the Bristol Bath area whilst I was at university over in Bath, and yeah, other people on the way like Eric Roche, for example. So in terms of the originals, there's a gap in terms of the songs that I learnt growing up. But I did learn tunes in the American tradition as well. So once I went down the Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed rabbit hole, I did a lot of study into that. But I would say the kind of Pierre Bensusan, Michael Hedges would be the I guess the quote unquote older artists who I've really dived into, a lot deeper. Make room for the coffee. It's coming past the huge alien mic here.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked last year with Gordon Giltrap, and he's very much of that old school. And we had a good discussion about some of the modern fingerstyle players that are coming up. And I think we both agreed that it's a great thing, not only for guitar but for music in general. The way that young people are bringing something new, they're taking what used to be around and it's morphing into something new, which is fantastic.
Well, that's the way it's always been with all music forever.
It's
and in my experience, it's an overgeneralization, I'm sure, to say this, but there's really two types of people in music. There's those that embrace change and those that are resistant to change, and change will happen.
Exactly.
Things will always change. The blues will become rock and roll will become metal. So it's really heartwarming to have people like Gordon, who are such legends in the community, sort of embrace, I guess, the direction that things are going in the younger generation.
Absolutely. In Glasgow, there's a really good scene of young musicians bringing something modern to the traditional Scots-Irish catalogue.
Do you know Steph McLeod?
No, I don't.
He's great. No. He's absolutely amazing. I play with him every year over at Andreas Kuntz's festival in Germany. He plays the same guitar maker's guitars as I do.
Okay.
And an amazing picker, an incredible singer. I mean, it's like a religious experience watching him do his thing. And he's, I think he's Glasgow. Maybe he's going to get mad if he hears this because he's either Glasgow or Edinburgh. I might have got things massively wrong. I know. That's like saying Bristol City or Bristol. Sorry, Steph.
I'll look him up. Yeah.
No, he's amazing, and he's doing something similar to what you're saying, taking traditional Scottish music and actually injecting it in with this new flavor in a band context. And they do a lot of work in America, actually in the churches over there as well. Yeah, really cool stuff.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of girls actually around the Glasgow area playing guitar, playing fiddle. I can think of several who were over a few weeks ago on Arran at the Arran Folk Festival. I
played with an amazing Scottish player. I can't remember her name. Gosh, we played together at the Ards Guitar Festival in Northern Ireland, and this was only back in April. And she was amazing, but she had a flamenco thing going on, so she was very much influenced by people like Rodrigo y Gabriela, and she was amazing. Yeah. I really, Alison Todd, I want to say. I could be totally wrong. Google that, people, and then if it's wrong, it's wrong. Apologies to the person who may or may not be called Alison. That's why I have the coffee. It's too early in the morning. I'm unchanged, unshowered, and was up until 5 or 6 a.m.
Yeah, we had a very good night.
We had a merry time. Yeah.
I watched your performance and was spellbound.
Thanks,
Your
man.
tone, your melody. You spoke about your sense of melody and how you compose last night when you were performing. That was quite heartwarming to hear, because one of the criticisms I hear of the modern style of fingerstyle player is that the melody seems to take a back seat to the rhythm and the technique and the percussive element, etc. Would you care to elaborate on that a little
I
bit?
can talk for hours on this subject for sure. I mean, it's tricky because everybody is it's all self-expression at the end of the day. And if someone's letting a technique lead a composition, maybe that's just what they're intending on doing. Maybe that's their soul being brought to light. You know, maybe that's just the change that is happening. Myself personally, coming from the school of Ben Susan and also melodic rock bands, I was a big fan of like Thin Lizzy, Iron Maiden, things like this. Very melody and harmony led rock music. I see the door opening. Enter
Sandman.
Enter someone.
It's Dan.
It's
Come in and
Danny
sit
boy.
down if you want to, Dan.
Come and join the interview, Dan.
Have
Daniel.
a comfy chair.
Daniel Burns' trousers, ladies and gentlemen, we just saw on that monitor.
That
Excellent.
chair's free if you want
Oh, and he's brought a friend.
to sit and rest.
Hey.
Dan's a member of the 5 a.m. club.
Absolutely. We were just talking about melody and fingerstyle and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Theo says hello.
Theo's favourite subject.
You might not be very conducive to an interview. Maybe. I'll come back later. Maybe.
Nice to meet you, Theo. Nice octopus, very cool. Or is it a squid? It's a cute
That's an
furry thing.
octopus. We
Yeah.
had Sophie through earlier for a short interview.
Oh, excellent. Oh, interview.
We had the turtle, the flamingo.
See, it is a turtle.
It's definitely turtle.
For the benefit of the tape, as they used to say on the bill, we had the tortoise-turtle debate at breakfast.
The record show.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Well, she called him Mr. Turtle, even though he doesn't have a name.
Just respect his show. Due deference. I've trained her well.
See you later, buddy.
See you in a bit.
So, where were we? Yes. So I don't think it's as simple as painting, a whole new generation of players with one brush by saying, a big feature of a new movement is a lack of melody. However, that being said, there's another thing to consider as well. So anyway, first of all, I was saying that coming from the school of melodic music, that's always been the way that I've composed, and the techniques are just extra things that allow me to perform as a sort of one-man show. And that's it, really. The songs aren't written to be percussive guitar songs, whatever that means. They're just songs that are played by one person. And that was born out of living in the suburbs and not really having many people to jam with. I will also add that we do live in a time, the first time in history, where an artist's development is in the public eye. And what I mean by that is, when I started this, I would be posting things that I was maybe a few months into playing the style, and I'd be posting them online.
Yeah.
And guess what? I mean, if I look back at that now, it would be terrible. Perhaps it would be less melodic, or perhaps it would just be a bad song. But the overwhelming pressure on young people and new musicians to share leads people to share their development, but people will only ever see their development as their final product. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So I think by saying that there's a lot of players that sound underdeveloped musically, that just means that they're on their journey and they're on their path. It just so happens that we live in a time where that's very public. And you can say, this kid who's been playing for a few months, he's shared a video, you scroll down the newsfeed and there's a clip of Tommy Emmanuel. They are the same. They are not the same. Tommy Emmanuel is a seasoned professional and this is a kid who's just starting. So you have to take a lot of that with a pinch of salt. I don't think there's many professional players out there that are doing the circuit on a professional level that don't respect melody in a piece of music, right? So yeah, that's my morning coffee, tired whiskey, hungover thoughts on the subject. But I really appreciate the compliment about melodic playing, because that's how it started, and that's how it's always been, and that's what brings me joy. So I appreciate I take that as a compliment. So thank you.
Well, I'll be honest with you. When I watched Acoustic Uprising, I had listened to Michael Hedges and some Preston Reed, but I hadn't really heard of any of the other participants in that documentary. And you were the one that stood out to me as the most melodic. You and Thomas Lieb.
Oh, Thomas is, well, the great thing about Thomas is he is a real master of rhythm. And I find his playing very melodic, but when people first encounter Thomas's music, the thing that stands out to them is the rhythm.
Right.
And that's a testament to how studied he is in African percussion. I think he had a great teacher from, I believe, Ghana. I want to say Ghana, maybe it was Senegal, I don't know. He really knows his stuff, and he plays for himself. He doesn't play for the internet or to impress his friends or anything like that. And every time I see him play, I just have a huge smile on my face. He's absolutely one of a kind musician. Yeah.
It was interesting what you said about the fact that people are more documenting rather than putting out polished products. I had a good chat with Dan last night about this. I don't know if he told you the story about his coming up here yesterday. The night before, he was up till 5 recording a piece that he wanted to use.
Yeah, he just told me at breakfast. Yeah.
For a Tom Sands piece. Now, we were having a chat about it last night, and he hasn't produced any EPs or any albums, but he's had a strong desire to do so for quite a long time. I would love him to do that, and he feels that he needs to put out something that represents what he does in the best possible light. In other words, he doesn't produce anything because it's never quite good enough.
Yeah.
And what you see now is on YouTube and all over the internet is, as you said, people putting out developmental stuff. And I find that from a personal point of view, with what I'm doing here, trying to record interviews and start a new channel, I'm 47, I'm not part of the YouTube generation. I didn't grow up with that. And so for me to make that jump into making something, using equipment to make something creative that's expressing myself and creating something of value, I have to try and switch my mindset into that idea of putting out what I have once it's done. I don't have to keep polishing it. And I find that there's a lot of value in that, because when I started to play music, when I was 21, I picked up my first guitar, and it was probably 15 years before I started playing with other people, before I started performing, because of that fear. I'm not good enough, I haven't polished it well enough, etc., etc. And I think that can hold you back in a lot of ways where creativity is concerned. I think that people who are documenting and publishing now, it may not be entirely the best thing that they could produce, but at least they're producing something, and I find that can be a very valuable thing for creators.
Anything that you're creating, be it this podcast or Dan recording a tune, that's a snapshot of a moment. It'll always be a snapshot of a moment. If I listen to Van Halen's first album, I'm not holding that to the same production standards as something that a band would release now. It's a snapshot of that time, and that's what makes it so cool, actually. As you do these podcasts, for example, your mics will change, your cameras will change, your setup will change, and you might look back at a video you've shot 3 years ago and think, oh, what was I thinking? The lighting's all wrong or whatever. But you are your own worst critic when it comes to that. No one is gonna. You have to remember the people witnessing this are witnessing it in the same time. They're not gonna be thinking, oh, this needs 3 more years and it would look great. With Dan and recording, one thing that's really helped me is finding an engineer who really gets it.
Okay.
And I've been very fortunate to have worked with the same engineer on all my recordings. And if I didn't have him, I wasn't working with him, I would be endlessly tweaking the recordings. This guy's called Josh Clark. He's based in Bath in the UK. And if any of you are interested in recording and want a real pro at the helm, he is amazing. He's it's not a big, huge, fancy studio. It's just a converted living room, but with a cat and tea and cheese and chutney sandwiches. And he just knows acoustic instruments. He knows, and he's quick. He's quick, and it makes you feel very comfortable. He makes you sound great, and it's that confidence in his ability to engineer that stops me worrying about all this extra stuff.
Good,
If I was doing it myself, which is what Dan's doing, then it's a rabbit hole of endless tweaks. And I think there's a lot to be said for having someone else in the room, a producer, just to say, that's great, don't change that, that's perfect, that take was the one,
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it, because we're all weird. We don't have a lot of confidence as musicians. I mean, we're all very insecure people. That's part of the nature of hiding behind these big acoustic instruments filled with vibrations and loveliness. But having a producer is something that I'd recommend he tries, I reckon.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
I mean, I'd happy to put him in touch with Josh. And for anyone listening, honestly, Josh Clark in Bath, the UK. If you can't find a link to his website, at the moment he goes by Get Real Audio, but I think he's going to change the brand name. For Fingerstyle, he's the guy. Again, every track I've ever recorded, I've done with him, and he's the sort of the go-to bluegrass guy. Actually, that's how I got to know him. So he really knows acoustic instruments. So highly recommended.
Bluegrass, huh? That's my preferred genre, actually. I love flat picking.
Yeah, he also plays in Kate Rusby's band.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes as her front of house live tech as well. So he gets it. Highly recommended. Josh Clark, the best.
Awesome. Here we have the bells. The
bells. It's such a beautiful place.
It really is. It really is. So what's next for Mike Dawes?
A little alien toy.
What have you got in the works?
What's next? So, I turn 30 in a few weeks, which is bringing with it some life changes. In my private life, I'm expanding my ability to have a private life by being a homeowner for the first time, and I'll be building a studio and all that stuff. However, my touring schedule is ridiculous. I'm not sure when this will air. When does this go out, this podcast, typically?
It'll be sometime during July.
Yep, okay. In July, I'm out with Tommy Emmanuel on the East Coast in America, doing 6 shows there. Then I join Andy McKee, Trevor Gordon Hall, and Callum Graham for some Guitar Masters shows on the West Coast in California.
Wow. Then
I do Andy McKee's Musicarium Music Camp with all of those guys, plus John Gom. Then from there, I go on a huge US tour with Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues, opening for him and playing guitar with him. Then we go straight to the UK. I have 7 days at home to hopefully get the keys to my new place and buy furniture. Then we do a UK tour with Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues, then jump over to the Netherlands for one show. Then I go to Ullapool Guitar Festival. Then the next day I play in Maryland in the USA to start another month and a week-long US tour with Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues. Then from there I fly straight to Germany, get off the plane and go into another 10 or so shows with Tommy Emmanuel in Germany. Wow. And after that, we're working on some clinics with the Dario strings to go into music stores. Then I get 2 weeks off in December, and then I go on tour again in January, February, March with International Guitar Night, which is myself, a Finnish gypsy jazz player, I believe a Spanish player, and a Hawaiian slack player. We're doing about 36 or 37 shows around North America, including Alaska and all those territories that I've never been to Alaska, which is very exciting. And then the last gig in the calendar is on the 1st of April. I do another festival on a cruise ship called On the Blue, and that's headlined by Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues. We have Art Garfunkel, we have Focus, Alan Parsons Project, The Zombies, me, and a whole bunch of other acts, and that will be sailing from Miami down to Haiti and all kinds of islands. That's a whole week-long sort of rock festival at sea, and I would assume that by the time this airs, that will probably have extended into another US tour. So in short, lots of US stuff. Wow. And hopefully after that, I'll be releasing new music. I've recorded 3 tunes and shot 3 videos for my next album already, but I want to hold them back, not be a content creator kid and throw things out as soon as they're done. Instead, I want to wait until the whole album's ready, and then do a strategic release of the third album with a video for every song and a tab for every song. And that obviously takes a lot of time to produce.
Sure, yeah.
But I want people to get a new tune from me every sort of 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so for, a year or something like that. And hopefully at that point I'll have probably, I don't know, just gone insane.
Wow. That's a busy schedule.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
But it's nice to see a young fingerstyle guitar player making a full-time living from playing guitar. I think that's fantastic.
It's an honor and a privilege, and it wouldn't be possible without the support of the fan base, not just of the guitar community, but of the Moody Blues fans who have been, ever since I had the privilege of opening up those shows, they've become very loyal, very supportive, and they're the best. I mean, at these shows, the front row is like the same for a lot of these shows. There's these like real hardcore Moody's fans who've become like family. So if you're listening, any of you guys, then thanks for the support. And also the heavy metal shred guitar community and I seem to connect quite well through many of my friends in that scene, but also the fans in that scene seem to gravitate towards what I'm doing, which is a real odd privilege to have this sort of extra world on the. I just did a guitar camp in Greece with Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player, so it was a sort of shred guitar metal thing, and I was the acoustic weirdo. Oh, my knees in shot. Hey, that's me in the morning with my sock and my knees. So it's a privilege, but it wouldn't be possible without all of the aforementioned.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to reach a place where you were financially comfortable with your music?
Well, so when I left university, I was like every other music student, straight down to the job centre. I got a job teaching ukulele to kids, teaching guitar wherever I could, and what I ended up doing was creating a portfolio of private guitar students just by being old-fashioned and flyering the local Sainsbury's and all of that, the very traditional guitar teacher approach. Yeah. And what happened gradually is when I released my first music video to a cover song of a song called Somebody That I Used to Know, it went kind of viral online, and what happened was I got a lot of gig offers, but I only had that one song, so I spent the year sort of creating my first album called What Just Happened, and in that time I learnt how to work in the industry, and I learnt how to book shows, and I learnt how to book visas and all this stuff, so that when the album came out the following year, I just started going on these trips, and to begin with, for the first few months, I was sort of weekend warrioring it. So I was sort of teaching in the week and flying over to, say, Germany to play 3 shows and then coming back. And then I went to Southeast Asia and Australia, and the trip was like a month long. And when I got back from that trip, it just kind of, I had to kind of choose, I couldn't commit to these guitar students full time. So instead, what I did is I replaced those students with Skype lessons to fans, because at that point I had a fan base now. Okay. So the good thing with Skype lessons is that they're not necessarily a regular once a week thing. It's sort of maybe once a month, or check in when you want, and I'll help you with what you're working on, or let's see your progress in a couple of months. And there was enough of that to kind of subsidize the touring. But honestly, the touring, is the living, really. I mean, over time, royalties start to snowball, but that doesn't happen right away. It takes time for the collection societies to get the ball rolling, and for things to stack up in the back end. But yeah, I mean, if you tour as much as I do, it's pretty impossible not to make a living from it, because I mean, you're just doing it all the time.
But like it must
10
have
months,
taken
10 months a year. You're playing concerts. And one of the great things about this scene is that if you're the only guy on stage, so if someone buys a CD, which people still do, and I'm super grateful to that, because CD sales are probably about a third of my living. Wow. Yeah, I mean, selling them on the merch table and on my website, which is MikeDawes.com. or MikeDawes.co.uk/shop. Yeah, it's what was I saying? You are, if you don't have a record label as well, you're basically, you take the cost of producing a CD, which is like 50p if you get them in bulk, and you're selling them for a tenner or 15 euros, or in some cases $20. You know, you take away the venue's cut and the merch vendor's cut and all this other tax and stuff, but still, you know, if you're playing to a decent sized room, you can get a, you know, an amount of money to kind of pay the bills from the merch, you know, which is good. But you have to be out there, boots on the ground, you know. And since 2013, I've been doing that, being, you know, all over the world, and it's got to the point now where, you know, I'm really happy for all these experiences, but I've really sacrificed a life.
Yeah.
And that's, in short, you know, to stop me rambling about, to answer your question, you can make a living as a weird guitar player, but you do have to give up a lot to do it. You know, you sacrifice your relationships, you sacrifice your friendships, you don't have any kind of home life or community. And what ends up happening is your friends, the people who you really connect with, are the people you meet on the road.
Yeah.
So my closest friends live in places like Las Vegas or LA or DC, you know, or wherever, Germany or Hungary or whatever. So if I want to go and visit my friends, I have to take a flight. I don't just go to the pub, right? So it's a weird life structure, but we'll see what the next 10 years brings, you know, what the next decade will bring. Who knows?
Sure.
The industry is always changing as well.
Tell us a bit about your masterclass on jam play.
Yes, well, I teamed up with Jamplay a few years ago in Colorado, and I produced a sort of 8 or 9 hour sort of mega guitar course called the Master Course. That's what they called it. And they basically wanted me to take people through from the basics of fingerstyle all the way up to the extended techniques and then into some songs. So that's what we did. So it's a super intense thing. And actually, if you go to Jamplay, it's like if you go like jamplay.com/sign-up, I think it is, and you type in the code DAWES, DAWES, it actually gives you, I think, a 7-day free trial to the whole website. So you can have lessons from, well, my course, or, you know, Phil Kagi, like, I think, like, you know, legendary electric guitar players. There's like 400 guitar players doing these courses. So if you do that, you get a free trial to all of this stuff, I believe. I only know this because I'm actually putting the course on little USB sticks at shows for these upcoming shows that I mentioned. So people will be able to get from the merch table the course in a reusable 16 gigabyte USB stick that they can then keep and use, but also have access to other courses as well. So yeah, that's really fun. But I do a lot of teaching stuff. I also have apps on the App Store for iPhone and iPad. I have like 4 different tuition apps. One's an overall modern fingerstyle guitar one, and then I have 3 songs that I teach, and we shot them at Peter Gabriel's studio in Box, Real World Studios. Yeah. I have a whole lot of tab on my website as well. I've made tab books, which are in the other room actually.
Yeah, I had to look through
these. I'm a big fan of learning from books. That's how I learned the Pierre Bensusan pieces and the Hedges pieces, are from physical books. Some made by my godfather for Pierre, some made by John Stropes for the Michael Hedges one, and so it's a dream to produce my own tab book. So that's also available on the website, and that contains a bunch of songs and also techniques as well.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of tuition.
Yeah.
You know.
So I'd like to move on to something you spoke about a little bit yesterday, was how to travel with a guitar on aircraft. Because you have quite a bit of experience with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's an interesting one. So everything I guess I will say now is as of now. Rules and regulations change all the time.
Yeah.
So I used to travel with a big old hard case that just did my shoulder in, running to do a tight connection with this guitar case, just jangling about it. It was just no fun. And additionally, I'd have to have an extra backpack for my hand luggage. So I discovered mono cases, and I'm a big fan of them, and I've used that for the past 3 years and never had any guitars get damaged. So the mono cases, they look like soft cases, but they're very well protected, and they're very secure inside. Lots of padding, lots of protection. When you take a soft case, or something that appears to be a soft case, the staff at the airports generally they go easier on you. They're less likely to take it from you because they see it as something that is fragile. You know, they are human beings. They're not just soulless creatures, these employees, although they might act like it sometimes. So what I was saying yesterday is I've never paid for a seat for a guitar. They will always try and get you to do that, but you don't need to do that. It's a rip-off. Essentially, what I would do is, if I'm traveling by myself, I'd just approach the kiosk to do my bag drop. They'll say, how many bags? Just go, oh, just one. Just put my suitcase on the thing. You know, thank you very much. Cheers, bye. And sometimes they won't even mention the guitar because it's on my back. Sometimes they might not even see it if I'll back away slowly, but usually they'll see it. And sometimes they'll say, oh, that guitar, it looks quite big. I'll say, oh, this? Oh, yeah, that's my hand luggage. I go, oh, really? It looks quite big. And there's a whole back and forth that I'm sure they've done a million times. Yeah. Some of them will say, no, you can't. You've got to check it. And if they say that I have to check it, I'll usually just insist that it's safe and also that it's very valuable. But also, I will say, would I be able to take it to the gate and we'll see if there's room. And if there's not room, no problem. Then we'll check it. And just maybe ask them to. Maybe if you just give me a tag, then you know I'll take it to them. And if it has to be checked, it'll be checked. No problem. 9 times out of 10, that's fine, right? So no one at security will care about the guitar. And then you get to the gate, and if you just get it to the plane, just by saying, "Oh, we're just going to see if it'll fit." Make sure you're at the front of the line. You know, don't be the last guy and holding everyone up. You're at the front of the line. You know, you're trying to do the best thing, and then the cabin staff, the stewardesses, they're always fine. They're like, "Yeah, sure, put it there, no problem." Yeah. It's just the people at that first check-in gate, and it'll always fit in an overhead. A mono case will fit in every aeroplane in the overheads, except for the tiny, one seat on each side, little puddle hoppers that'll take you from regional airport to regional airport. If you're on an Airbus or doing anything transatlantic, it'll always fit. And even if you get there late and there's no space in the overhead lockers, the stewardesses will put it in their locker, right? Now, if worst case scenario, you take it to the gate and they do check it, and they said there's no room at all, and it's happened a few times. I've had to go transatlantic and they have checked it. It's on after all the other luggage because you've got it to the gate. Yeah. You didn't put it at the bag drop at the beginning, and it goes on after everything and it'll come off before everything. Now people think that a lot of people who fly, they don't really understand the physics behind aircraft. Weight distribution is very important to a vehicle that flies in the sky. They don't just throw luggage in willy-nilly and have it slide around. That's not conducive to something that can take off. So everything is compartmentalized, and when you do gate check it, it will go into a netted area that's completely kind of isolated and safe. It's not going to get squished. The only thing is humidity on very long flights, so just make sure there's a few humidipacks. Like Planet Waves, the Dario make some good ones. And because a guitar will usually get damaged between the bag drop and the plane, or the plane and the baggage belt. Yeah. On the plane itself, not so much because of this if you do it right. So my only other piece of advice is avoid British Airways because they're the only airline to have a blanket policy that there's a new policy that says no instruments in the cabin, full stop. Which is a shame because I collected British Airways miles for quite some time, and now I've quit and gone to Star Alliance. But yeah, that was a very long-winded way of saying be persistent, be polite. Don't be the angry passenger. Everyone wants the same thing, but don't get your card out and pay for a seat because you don't need to do that. Yeah,
good tips.
Hope so. Yeah.
Tell us about your anecdote, the trip to Ireland.
Oh yes. So one time, so I used to fly Bristol to Belfast quite a lot, and at the time, Ed Sheeran was at the Loudon factory in Downpatrick. I think he bought a bunch of guitars there, like 6 guitars or something. And usually Bristol to Belfast, it's on EasyJet, but the plane's big enough, it always fits. 9 times out of 10, it's fine. I do the same rules same tips that I just said. But this one woman was being really persistent. She said, "No, we have to check it. We have to check it." And I just said, "Listen, Janet," looking at her name tag. "I didn't want to tell you this, but this is Ed Sheeran's guitar I'm transporting it for emergency repairs at the factory in Downpatrick. Do you really want to be the person that breaks his guitar beyond repair, and then they were like, ummed and ahed a bit, and he let me take it on the plane. So base every line a bit of truth, when it comes to that. Another time is, you do sometimes witness the discrimination between how they treat economy passengers and first class passengers. So when I travel with Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues, sometimes we'll be on the same flight, and we'll be checking in. I'm checking in for my economy seat at the back. He's checking in for his first class seat because he's the rock star, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be there, and they're just like, nope, you can't take it. And then Justin will just say, just give it here. And he takes the guitar, and he goes, this is my guitar now, I'm taking it. And they're like, fine, no problem.
Wow.
So sometimes he's just literally, he's the one that walks on with it, and he turns left, no problem. If I take it and turn right, problem.
Yeah.
That helps sometimes. But also with a first class ticket, I think you get more space in your locker as part of the ticket. Also, I collect air miles, and I just got my gold status, which basically allows you priority boarding, among other perks. And the priority boarding means that you'll be on first, which means there'll always be room. So these little hacks, there's lots of little things you can do. But at the end of the day, the thing that's hard with flying is the inconsistency with the rules. If it was one rule for everyone, then it would be easy to prepare for. But, if someone's having a bad day, they might take it out on you. Someone will say this is the rule, and someone else will say this is the rule, and just be prepared for. Every trip is an adventure, and this is why I try to avoid connections, because every connection is a battle. It's a new battle. I flew when I was flying to Greece, I connected in Athens to go to Thessaloniki, and I got the guitar to Athens, no problem at all, everything's fine, and then I changed in Athens, and suddenly, whoa, why do you have a guitar? Can't take this. How did you get that here? Same airline, exactly the same type of plane as well. So
There's a friend of mine
in
Connecticut, a friend called John Thomas, who's a collector of vintage Gibson instruments amongst other things, and he's a lawyer by profession. Yeah, and he takes with him a copy of.
Is this
the law?
The Obama thing?
No, I don't think it's the Obama thing, no. He writes for Fretboard Journal. He's very involved in the whole guitar world. And he takes with him a copy of the federal law, which he'll show at the airport check-in desk. And even that quite often isn't enough.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Trump's repealed it, but Obama passed some legislation which basically says that if you have a musical instrument, and it's within the domestic USA. So if you're flying from Europe it doesn't count, but if you're flying from Kansas City to Phoenix, then it counts. You are technically allowed to see if there's room on the plane. You are allowed to get it to the cabin and see if it will fit. And as I said before, once you get it there, the staff are always just like, it's fine, no problem. So I've had that saved on my phone. I've never used it though, but it is a little ace up the sleeve, I guess. So it sounds like some people do use it, but I believe that's the law that he would be referring to. It was something that Obama passed, but it only applies to the domestic mainland. USA. Well, I talking about super nerdy tour hacks. It's fun. It's very, very different than other interviews.
We could talk for a long time.
I'm sure we will. We're here all day, and I mean,
your guitar playing, your guitar itself is quite stunning. The Cuntz guitar.
Yeah. Props to Andreas Cuntz. That's the Mike Dawes model, available on only some websites because his name is Cuntz, spelled Cuntz. So if you're interested in checking out his guitars, Thomann in Germany stocks some, but he does custom orders through his website, which I believe is acguitars.de or .com. If you can't find him via Cuntz Guitars, or you don't want that in your search history, AC Guitars, standing for Andreas Cuntz, you can find him under.
And you have one built by Nick Benjamin?
Yeah, I have two. Amazing guitars. Oh, I have three now. Gosh. Wow. Yes, Nick and I. Yes, the guitar that I recorded my first album with was Nick's number 100, Alpine Spruce and Coca Polo. Beautiful guitar. It's currently with him in his workshop getting deglossed, because it was a high gloss guitar, but I want to take that gloss off so I can my sticky hands don't go when I'm doing the percussion. And I also have a satin finished mahogany Sitka guitar his 138th guitar, which is beautiful. I love it. And I did my first 2 years of touring with that guitar. And I just got a new guitar from him, which is a weird experiment. It's a semi-baritone with bass tuners and separate pickups for the bottom 2 strings. It has banjo tuners on the top 2 strings. All kinds of wacky features that, well, if you want to find out more about that in detail, follow me on Instagram, and you can, Mike_Dawes, and you can trawl through and see some pictures of this guitar. It's very easy to spot. It looks like Batman. It's sort of a black, spiky Gotham City thing, and one-of-a-kind instrument. And we made it all out of sustainable woods as well. So it was all maple, which is a very bright sound. I'm currently composing a few tunes on it, but it's one of those guitars, because it's such a beast. I can't really just play anything on it, I have to. It's like a different instrument, I have to compose pieces to present on it. So I've got a few things in the pipeline on it, which is very exciting. Yeah, fantastic. Lots of guitars around, and not enough space to put them.
Well, that's partly why this weekend's such an enjoyable one for us.
And there's some amazing guitars. Tom Sands, who I met last night, has some guitars here that I'm looking forward to playing. They're pretty amazing. I know Will McNichol, as a friend of mine. He plays them, and they were real special guitars. A lot of heart and soul goes into those, and this is why I'm a big fan of supporting independent luthiers, because they put more into the instruments than the production line. Yeah. So support your local luthier, everybody.
Absolutely. I'll second that. Well, Mike, I'm going to say thank you very much for sitting down with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, apologies for my dishevelled morning hungover appearance on this video, but
we're here to have fun, and we did lots of that.
We will continue to do so today.
We will indeed. So,
and we're going to play a song together with one hand on each guitar.
So we are.
Yes. Which is going to be fun.
I look forward to that. Okay, Mike, thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'll see you in a wee while.
See you in a wee while.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that discussion there with Mike. I'm very grateful to you, Mike, for taking some time out to sit down and have a conversation with me when you were on what's ostensibly a holiday. For those watching, Mike was actually intending to leave on the Saturday afternoon, but it was such a chilled and relaxed atmosphere that he decided to stay on an extra night, and it was great just to hang out in that chilled environment on such a beautiful weekend. It was wonderful to hear a musician out there crushing it on the fingerstyle guitar scene as Mike is. And what came across to me was just how much he enjoys doing what he does. I mean, if you can make a living from doing your passion, then I think all the sacrifices are worthwhile. And it was a huge inspiration to me to have that conversation, because that's precisely what I'm trying to do here with this fledgling channel, is to get out there and interview people and bring some valuable content to guitar players around the world. This is the sort of thing I would really have enjoyed watching back when I started to play, and indeed is the kind of thing I enjoy watching now. There are quite a few YouTube channels that I follow because I really enjoy the content. And so that's what I'm trying to do here, to live my passion, to grow, to earn a living from doing something that I love, and hopefully that love will come across in all of the content that I make. I have plans to make some more content this year. I've booked some travel to the Ullapool Guitar Festival. This will be the first time I've been to that. I know that Will McNichol's going to be there, Clive Carroll, Richard Smith. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. Will McNichol is the guy that actually helped me to launch this channel, because he was my first interview subject, and I will always be grateful to you, Will, because that particular interview not only was enjoyable, but it showed me that I can actually do this. Your feedback was invaluable, and I'm very grateful to you. Thank you, Will McNichol. And I'm really looking forward to hearing all these musicians playing again, of course. I did mention Clive Carroll there. We got to see Clive also at the weekend where I interviewed Mike. And yes, we did sit down and talk on the camera. So if you would like to hear that interview, then stay tuned. That will be coming very soon. You also got to see a brief mention of Dan Byrne when he walked in with little Theo. Dan is one of the organisers of the event down in the Cotswolds, and is a very dear friend. It's great that he and I have become such good friends. We had a few chats, a few late night chats, and we share a similar passion and outlook on life, I think, in many ways. And so during one of our conversations, I flicked the record button and we taped that as well. So you will see an interview with Dan coming up very soon. And also, you will have heard Mike's mentioning a luthier called Tom Sands. Yep, Tom was there too. It was great to meet Tom. It was kind of strange because Tom and Daisy Tempest, his creative advisor and apprentice, they are actually the guitar makers who are using social media the most, I would say, and the most effectively. They are crushing it on Instagram, on Facebook, on their own website. Just the way that they're putting out session content with guitar players coming into the studio, or little short clips or photography. So I felt that I already kind of knew them, as that's how the internet works in funny ways. So when I met them, it was like a reunion for me. They'd never met me, so it was a little different for them than it is for me. But that's one of the things I find about podcasts in general, is that as a listener, you feel that you get to know the hosts. So I'd be interested to have some feedback from longer term listeners of this particular broadcast, to see whether you feel that you would like to come on and have a chat with me, because I'm always looking for more players, more builders, more musicians who would like to come on. If you have products to plug, this is a great place to do it. Hopefully the audience numbers will grow quite soon, and you'll be able to get your new album or your new video or whatever it might be in front of some more people. So hit me up. cams@acousticguitar.io is my email, or you'll get me on the social media platforms, all the usual ones, including YouTube and Instagram, etc. But yes, we got to sit down with Tom and Daisy, and we had an interview which was very enjoyable. It's always lovely to talk to the both of them. And we also shot a session video, which you can find on Tom's website. They filmed Clive Carroll's playing on a Tom Sands model, playing Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, and it was a real treat to be in that room, to be part of that production, and to hear Clive's playing that wonderful jazz standard. So check out Tom Sands' website. I'll put a link down below so you can follow that up. So that was 4 interviews that I've recorded. This is the first one, which I'll be publishing hopefully today, July the 11th, 2019. And you'll get some more content coming very soon from Ullapool and from Halifax, where I've booked accommodation to attend the Acoustic Soundboard UK Guitar Forum gathering, the first of which I went to last year. That's in September, in the Crown Hotel, or Crown Imperial, something like that, in Halifax. So it's a similar sort of deal. Bunch of musicians, bunch of guitar builders. We get together and have a jolly old time. So if you fancy coming to that, I believe there's still space. You can go to the acousticsoundboard.co.uk and sign up there to join the forum. And there's a thread on there about how to get to the next gathering in September. I believe it's called HB, because it used to be held in Hebden Bridge. So it's HB and then the number. I think it's the 10th one coming up this year, 10th annual gathering. So it's got some legs too, and it's really a whole lot of fun. So without any further ado, I shall sign off. I shall thank you all for watching, and I will ask you one more time, just please share this with your friends, and if you can afford to throw $1 or even $5 at me a month, that would really help me to grow this. All I've got at the moment is a maxed out credit card and a maxed out overdraft, and so I can't invest in more gear at the moment. I've got enough gear, I think, to make some good quality content, which hopefully this video will attest. But I do hope to grow my setup. The main thing I'm looking for at the moment is lavalier mics. You'll see in the interview with Mike there that he had an Ear Trumpet Labs microphone in front of him, which, while a fantastic condenser microphone, is not really ideal to have in front of someone's face when you're doing a video interview. So lavalier mics are the next thing that I'll be looking at buying, and of course, like anything, the good ones aren't cheap. So if you can help me out with that, that would be fantastic. Maybe I'll set up a goal on my Patreon feed at patreon.com/acousticguitarIO and try and think of a reward perhaps for anyone who contributes. I do subscribe to some Patreon feeds myself because I just feel that the content I watch is very valuable. The main ones at the moment are Mary Spender, Adam Neely and Paul Davids. Those are three fantastic musicians whose content I find very valuable, and so I just throw $1 at them a month just to support them, and I feel that kind of makes me feel a bit less guilty about asking you, because I know it's a model that can work and it would help me to grow this channel. And if you do find this valuable, you know, $1 a month isn't a huge amount, so thank you for your consideration. Hit me up on the App Store as well, give me a rating. That's how this stuff gets moved up the rankings on the podcast networks, so that would help me out a lot too. Some feedback would be very much appreciated. So I shall say thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.